Hey, it's Ashley at Smart Edition Academy. And in today's video, we are going to go through a full-length math test for the TEAS exam. I'll go through each question and you can follow along while I solve it. Before we jump in, be sure to check out the links in the description of this video where you will find links to a free practice test just like the one we will go through together today, a free TEAS bootcamp, the Smart Edition TEAS online course, and our Facebook study group. Okay, so let's jump into it. Okay, so we're going to go through 38 questions together today. And for this first question, we need to find the median of the data set. So median means middle. So this word median means middle. So before we can find the middle, we need to put this into the correct order from least to greatest. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to list this data from least to greatest. And when I do that, I like to cross them off as I go so that I don't forget any. So I've got 3 20s. I'm going to go through, I've got a 21. Looks like we've got 4 22s. 2, 3, 4. What else? 23. We'll also have 2 24s. And then 1, 2, 3 25s. And a 26. So now this order is in order from least to greatest. I can go through and find the middle of my numbers. So the middle, again, just a strategy that I like to use is just cross off. If we're looking for the middle, we can get rid of 1 in the beginning and 1 at the end. And I'm just going to do that until I have my middle piece of data. So it looks like once I get here, I end up with a 22 and a 23. So the median is going to be whatever would be right in between. I'll rewrite it here. So we basically have this. We need whatever would be right smack dab in the middle of 22 and 23. So we need the average. So in order to find that, I'm just going to do 22 plus 23 and divide that by 2 to find the average. Or you might just be able to see that 22 and a half, 22.5 should be right in the middle. Okay, so that's going to be our answer. Okay, the graph shows the amount of rainfall in inches for 12 days. Which statement is true for the line graph? So I'm looking at this line graph. It is about rainfall amount, and my label here shows me the rainfall amount in inches. That's on my vertical axis. And then my horizontal axis is the day. So this line graph is showing me how much rain on each specific day. So if I look at my options here, did it rain more than 1.5 inches more than half of the days? So 1.5 inches would be somewhere up here. So I don't think that this shows half, not even close. It looks like most of them are below that. So that option doesn't look so good to me. The average amount of rainfall was 1 inch. So 1 inch would be down here. So the average still looks like there's a lot more below. So if we went through and found the average, I would think it would be lower than that. But we could leave that option to just in case, kind of go through our choices and see if anything else makes sense. It rained every day. So if we check every day, did it rain on day 1? Yes. Day 2? Yes. So it looks like every data point shows at least a little bit of rain. So that one is looking good to me so far. It rained every day. And then the last one, the amount of rainfall steadily increased throughout the days. Well, that's not true because it kind of went down and then back up, down and then back up. So it looks like our best choice is the one that I starred. It rained every day. But notice how I went through and I got rid of the ones that didn't make sense. And then I chose the best answer. And I tried not to do more work than I had to. So I didn't go through and find the average because there was a better answer and it saves me a little bit of time. Okay, so it looks like that should be our answer. Okay, question 3. Megan served a dinner party while at work and earned 22% tip from the customers. If Megan received $16.50 as her tip, what was the customer's bill? So there's 2 ways that we could go about this. I like to set up a proportion when we're talking about percents, just because I never have to remember, what do I divide? What do I multiply? I just let the proportion tell me what to do. So my proportion is always the part over the whole equals the percent over 100, because percent literally means out of 100. So in this case, my part is her tip. Okay. And the whole would be the whole bill, which we don't know. So I'm going to give that the variable x, and that needs to equal 22 out of 100. So from here, I can cross multiply and get 1,650 equals 22 times x. And if I divide each side by 22, my final answer will be x equals 75. So that means that her bill was 75, or the customer's bill, I'm sorry, is $75. Okay. Some of you may have realized I could have just taken this 1650 and divided it by 22%. But when we talk about percent, we have to do it as a decimal. So divide it by 0.22. Okay. And if you plug that right in your calculator, you will get the same thing of 75. So that is another way to do it. So just two different ways to go about it. This one is a little bit quicker, but the proportion, you don't have to remember divide, multiply, what do I have to do? So you choose the one that works best for you, but our answer is 75. Okay, next question. The number 20 is approximately 15% of what value? Okay, so we have another percent question here. I'm going to, again, set it up as a proportion and then show you how we could just maybe find a little bit of simpler way to do it. But in this case, our part is 20, and the whole, again, is what we're trying to find. What value? Well, we don't know, so I'm going to call it x. That needs to equal 15 out of 100. So when I cross multiply here, I'm going to get 2,000 equals 15 times x. And when I divide each side by 15, I get approximately 133. So if I were to plug this into my calculator, I would get 133.3 repeating. Okay, but the question asks approximately, so it's around 133. If I wanted to do this a little bit simpler of a way, I would just need to know that I have to take my total, or the number 20, I have to take the number 20 and divide it by my percent, okay? But again, my percent has to be written as a decimal, okay? And that would also get me to the same answer of 133. Okay, convert 2.5 miles to feet. Okay, so what I'm trying to figure out here is 2.5 miles equals how many feet? So I'm just going to call that x. Okay, I know that 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. So we need to know that in order to solve this problem. So this is an important conversion to know. Okay, so if this is the case, how many miles or how many feet is in 2.5 miles? Well, I just need to take this, which is 1 mile, and multiply it by 2.5, and I will get 13,200 feet. Okay, so important to know the conversion for this one, and then we can just multiply. Okay, a doctor writes a prescription for 0.5 liters of liquid medicine to a patient. Okay, so we have 0.5 liters, and they want to know how many milliliters will the medicine bottle be filled with. Okay, so I need to go from liters to milliliters. So 0.5 liters is equal to how many milliliters? Okay, so if you know your conversions, you might remember that 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. Okay, so I only need half of a liter. So half of this, I just can divide this by 2, and I will get 500 milliliters. So that's great if you remember your conversions. Let me show you a quick little mnemonic that will help you if you have trouble remembering these metric system conversions. So the mnemonic is King Henry died while drinking chocolate milk. Okay, so King Henry died while drinking chocolate milk. This helps me know how many times to move the decimal place, and that's kind of a quick way to find our answer here. So the W stands for the whole unit. So this works for liters. This works for grams. This works for meters, okay? I can use any of those. So I need to go from my whole unit of liters, so I have 1 liter, and I need to turn it into milliliters. So I'm going to write my 1 underneath my whole unit, okay? And I need to go to milliliters. So the decimal is right here. I need to swoop it, let's see, 1, 2, 3 times. So I'm going to swoop my decimal 1, 2, 3 times, okay? And that will show me that that is 1,000 milliliters in a liter. So in this case, I only had 0.5 liters. So when I swoop it 3 times now, okay, I fill those empty spaces with zeros, and I get 500 as my solution. So 500 milliliters. Okay. This question looks like I need to subtract and combine some terms. So what I like to do with questions like this is distribute my negative sign so I don't forget that this applies to everything in the parentheses. Okay, everything in there is getting subtracted. So what I have here, 8x squared minus 6x minus 3. Now I'm going to subtract 4x squared. I'm going to subtract negative 5x, which is really, subtracting a negative is really just adding. And then I'm going to subtract 4. And from here, I need to remember what I can combine. So I can combine my x squareds. Okay, and I'm going to look at what's in front. So 8x squared minus 4x squared would be 4x squared. And then I have negative 6x plus, remember this turned to a plus 5x. So that would be negative x. And then I have negative 3 minus 4, which gives me negative 7. 4x squared minus x minus 7 is our solution. So for this question, we are going to convert 1/8 to a decimal and round to the nearest hundredth. So the quickest way to go from a fraction to a decimal is to think about a fraction as a division problem. So 1/8 just means 1 divided by 8. Okay, and if I plug that right into my calculator, 1 divided by 8 will give me 0.125. So this question asked me to round to the nearest hundredth. So when I'm talking about the nearest hundredth, I have my tenths place, and then I have my hundredths place. So I want to go to this decimal place. And when I'm talking about rounding, I need to know, am I going to stay at 0.12, or should I change that 2 to a 3? So you might remember back in grade school, something about the number next to it telling you whether you should go up or to stay. So one thing that might help you remember is 5 or more, let it soar. 4 or less, let it rest. Okay, so 5 or more, we're going to go up. 4 or less, we're going to just stay where it is. Okay, so this number now, because we have a 5, the 2 is going to change to a 3. And so our answer would be 0.13 or 13 hundredths. Okay, a patient's fever is 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Convert the temperature to the Celsius scale. So a formula that we can use for Celsius is 5/9 times our temperature in Fahrenheit minus 32. Okay, so I'm going to plug in 102 where I had the F holding my place for my Fahrenheit temperature. And when I go through and simplify that, I get 5/9 times 102 minus 32 would be 70. Okay, so now I just have to figure out how do I do 5/9 times 70. So I can just go across the top and across the bottom here. We might want to add a 1 if we need to. 5 times 70 would be 350 divided by 9. And if I just plug that into my calculator, I get approximately 38.8 repeating. So that is super close to our choice right here of 39 degrees Celsius. Okay, so looking at that formula and remembering that we were going to use that to go from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay, next we have a word problem. A pizza shop sells individual pizza slices throughout the day in addition to whole pizza orders. The shop sells 3/8 of a cheese pizza, 3/8 of a pepperoni pizza, and 2/5 of a specialty pizza. How many pizzas did they sell in individual slices? So we want to know the total that they sold here. So they sold 3/8 for a cheese, 3/8 for pepperoni, and then 2/5 for a specialty pizza. So in order to add these together, I first need to have a common denominator. Okay, in order to add fractions, we need a common denominator. So the quickest way to find the common denominator is to take your denominator. So 8 and 8 are the same, so we don't have to worry about that. But we're going to multiply it by 5. So 8 times 5, which is 40, that is going to be the denominator we will use. Okay, so I'm going to change all of these to fractions that have 40 as the denominator. So in order to do that, I did 8 times 5 to get me to 40. So I need to do 3 times 5 to keep an equivalent fraction. So 15/40 is the same thing as 3/8. Okay, so 3/8 here, that will also be 15/40. And then 2/5 to go from 5 to 40, I multiplied that by 8. So I'm going to do that on the top as well. 2 times 8 is 16. So now I can just go through and add 15 plus 15 plus 16, which will give me 46/40. Okay, looks like all of my answers are mixed numbers. So I'm going to take this improper fraction, and 40 goes into 46 once. So I can pull out one whole and have 6/40 left over. And I can actually simplify that because both of these are even. I can divide by 2. So 1 and 3/20 will be my final answer. Okay, what is 32 out of 160 as a percent? 32 out of 160. So we can just set this up really quickly, either as a fraction, and then remember we can just divide, or we might just know off the top of our head. We just have to take 32 and divide it by 160. Okay, and what that gives me is 0.2. So 0.2 is not our percent. That's just the decimal representation. So in order to turn this into a percent, I need to swoop my decimal twice, which is the same thing as multiplying by 100. Remember, percent means out of 100. So 0.2, swoop the decimal twice, or just multiply it by 100, and you are going to get 20% as your final answer. Two friends got the same percentage of math questions right on their tests. One friend got 96 questions correct out of 120 questions. If the second friend took an exam with only 75 questions, how many did she answer correctly? So they got the same percent of math questions right. Okay, so I'm going to create a proportion or a ratio in order to find the missing part here, which is how many did she answer correctly. So the first friend got 96 out of 120. That is the same percentage as something, however many she got right, I'm going to give that the variable x out of the 75 total. So from here, I can cross multiply and try to solve for x. So when I do 96 times 75, I get 7,200, and then 120 times x. All I have to do here is divide each side by 120, and I will get that x equals 60, which means that she had 60 questions answered correctly on her exam. Okay, solve the equation for the unknown. So we need to solve for x here. I just need to get x by itself. So the first step will be to move over this 3 that's just floating over here. We need to move it over. So we're going to subtract, which will get it to cancel out. Positive 3 minus 3 would be 0. So it'll cancel out. If we do it on the left side of the equal sign, we are also going to do it on the right. So what I have is 4x equals 8 minus 3 is 5. And then 4, this is times x, right? 4x means 4 times x. The opposite operation would be division, so I just need to divide each side by 4, and I get x equals 5/4. Okay, looking good so far. Okay, if you're still with me, thank you so much. You are doing an awesome job. We are cruising through this practice test. Okay, let's look at a fraction multiplication question. I need to do 4/5 times 1/5. So when I multiply fractions, all I have to do is go across the top and across the bottom. So 4 times 1 is 4. 5 times 5 is 25. That's it. Multiplying fractions, just go across the top and across the bottom. All right, the following circle graph shows what a family spends their income on each month. If the family earns $6,500 a month, how much are they spending on their bills? So this whole circle graph represents $6,500 and how it's broken up by what they spend. So we need to find how much do they spend on their bills. So their bills represent 25% of their spending. Okay, so 6,500, I need 25% of that. I'm just going to do 6,500 and multiply that by 25%, but I need to turn it into a decimal. So remember to go from a percent to a decimal. I just need to swoop it twice. So 0.25 is what I can multiply 6,500 by, and I get 1,625. So that is what they spend on their bills. A homeowner is renovating their kitchen and needs 75 square feet of tile for the backsplash. The tile contractor requires 15% overage of tiles to complete the job. How many square feet of tile does the homeowner need to purchase? Okay, round the answer to the nearest tenth and use a leading 0 if it applies, but do not use a trailing 0. So all of that is important for us to enter this correctly to get the correct answer here. So he needs 75 square feet, and it's saying that he needs 15% overage. That means that 15% more than the 75 needed. So I'll show you 2 ways to do this. I could just take 75 and multiply it by 0.15. Remember, we have to turn percents into decimals. And this will be 11.25. This is the overage. Okay, so this is the overage. Now I can go through and just add that back to what I need to complete the job, and I will get 86.25 as my answer. I could also just take 75 and do this all in one step by multiplying it by 1.15, because if I need the 75 plus 15% more, that means I need 115% of the material. Okay, so then you can turn that into a decimal and multiply that the same way, and you will get the exact same answer. Now, if we go back to the instructions, I need to round to the nearest tenth. So I need to decide, is this 2 going to stay a 2, or should I bump it up to a 3 when I round? Remember, 5 or more, let it soar. 4 or less, let it rest. We've got a 5, so we are going to change this to a 3, and our final answer will be 86 3/10. A yield sign in the shape of a triangle has a base length of 90 centimeters and a height of 80 centimeters. What is the area in square centimeters? So whenever I have a problem like this, I like to draw a picture so I know I'm labeling it correctly and I have all the information I need. So here's my triangle. Okay, so the base is 90 and the height is 80. Okay, so my height is there. Something like that. So what is the area? We need to know that area is equal to 1/2 the base of the triangle times the height of the triangle. So 1/2 of 90 times 80. So if I go ahead and plug all this right into my calculator, I will get 3,600 square centimeters as my area. Okay, Trisha put $1,800 down on a new car and paid $375 a month for 6 years. How much did Trisha spend in total for her car? Okay, so we know Trisha spent $1,800 down. Then she's paying $375 a month for 6 years. So I'm going to add whatever that is. So $375 a month, okay, for 6 years. Well, how many months are in a year? We need to make sure we multiply this by 12. So this is showing how much she pays in 1 year. And then we're going to multiply that by 6 to show how much she would pay in 6 years. So now all I have to do is multiply 375 times 12 times 6, and that gives me 27,000. And when I add the 1,800 she put down, 28,800 is how much she spent in total for her car. Okay. A nurse provides 0.25 liters of fluid to a recovering patient every 4 hours. The doctor wants to restrict the fluid intake and stop it after 1,500 milliliters. And then the doctor will check on the patient. How many times will the patient receive fluid before the doctor checks on him? So we have 0.25 liters, and we need to go to milliliters, so I know how many milliliters each dose is. So from what we did before, we need to swoop this 3 times. Okay, if you want to try to remember your mnemonic, King Henry died while drinking chocolate milk. Going from liters, our whole unit, to milliliters, swoop it 3 times. So that will give me 250 milliliters. So each dose is 250 milliliters. And if I take the total the doctor wants her to receive before he checks on her, divide it by the 250 that's in each dose, then I will get 6 as the amount of times the patient will receive the fluid. Okay, so 6 doses. Okay, change 89 hundredths to a fraction. So when we're talking about going from a decimal to a fraction, if we know the place value that the decimal ends in, so in this case the 9 is in the hundredths place, I can just take the 89 and put it over 100. So knowing your place value is super helpful for this. So 89 over 100 would be the fraction that is equal to 0.89 or 89 hundredths. Okay, students were surveyed about their favorite pet, and the bar graph shows the results. Select the best statement for the bar graph. Okay, so favorite pet, looks like we have our quantity here, how many people voted for that pet, and then the animal down here. Okay, so we have a few options. The most number of students consider dogs their favorite pet. So if we look here, dogs is down here, but it looks like cats are actually the favorite. That is the higher one. So that would not be the correct answer because cats are actually was voted by the most number of students as the favorite pet. Okay, next option says the total number of students who prefer fish and pigs is equal to the number of students who prefer gerbils. So let's go back and see. Well, it looks like fish, 4 people preferred fish, and pig, that is lining up to where 3 would be. So it looks like 3 people chose pigs. So 4 plus 3 would be 7. And when I look at gerbil, I'm kind of like looking across to see where that would land. Looks like 7 is about right. So I'm thinking that the second one sounds good. And if I go through and check the next one, just to be sure, the total number of students who prefer fish and pigs is equal to the number of students who prefer birds. So fish and pigs, 4 fish, 3 pigs, but birds is up here at 8. So that's not right. And then fish are the least preferred pet. Nope, pig was less. So we were good with option number 2, but I always like to double check just in case I miss something. All right, we have an inequality to solve here. 5 minus x is less than or equal to 2. Okay, so what we can do here is try to get x by itself. So I'm going to subtract 5. So this 5 is positive. I need to make sure I subtract 5 in order for it to cancel out. So on the left, I have negative x is less than or equal to negative 3. And this negative in front is really like a negative 1. So to get rid of that, I can divide each side by negative 1. And whenever I divide or multiply by a negative, okay, this step is super important, I need to flip my sign here in order to have a true statement. So x is greater than or equal to 3 would be my final answer. Okay, so multiplying or dividing by a negative, you need to flip the inequality sign. Oops. Okay, next question. 2/7 plus 1/10. Okay, so when we are adding our decimals, we need to make sure we have a common denominator. So again, that trick we used earlier, 7 times 10 is 70. That is going to be the denominator we will use. So we're going to change both of these to have a denominator of 70. 7 times 10 gives me 70, so I can do 2 times 10, which is 20. 10 times 7 is 70, so I'm going to do 1 times 7, which is 7, and then I just add these together, and I get 27 over 70. Okay, a circular dinner plate has a diameter of 13 inches. A ring is placed along the edge of the plate. Find the circumference of the ring in inches. So we have a circle. Okay. And the diameter is 13. So the diameter goes through the center, right? All the way across. So the diameter equals 13. A ring is placed along the edge of the plate. So we need to go along the edge. That is what we call the circumference. So our circumference is going to be the outside of the circle. So our formula for circumference is C equals pi times diameter. I remember this by cherry pie delicious. C equals pi times diameter. Cherry pie delicious. So if we're trying to find our circumference, we're going to plug in 3.14 for pi, which is what they say in the directions up here. And then the diameter is 13. So when I go through and multiply that, I get 40.82 as my circumference. Okay, multiplying fractions. We did one of these before. This might be a good opportunity for you to pause the video, check it out, give it a try, and then come back. Okay, if you're sticking with me, I'm going to go through here and just take 3/10 times 1/7 and go across the top and across the bottom and get 3 over 70 as my answer. Solve the equation for the unknown. Okay, another one, we did something similar to this before. Feel free to go ahead and try it on your own, but I'm going to get started. To get a by itself, we need to add 10 to both sides. Negative 10 plus 10 will cancel out, and I will get a equals, now negative 20 plus 10. Because the negative number is bigger, it's going to be negative, okay? And then the difference here would just be 10. So a has to equal negative 10. Okay. A right triangular prism has a triangular base with legs of 5 centimeters and 12 centimeters and a hypotenuse of 13 centimeters. What is the surface area? Okay, so for this, might be helpful just to have a picture again. So might not be the best three-dimensional shape we've ever seen, but we have a triangular base, okay? And then I'm just gonna connect this a little bit, okay? And something like that. So what this says is that we have legs of 5 and 12 and a hypotenuse of 13. So it told me it was a right triangular base, so say those are right angles. Okay, it might not look like it perfectly, but in a three-dimensional shape might look something like that. We have legs of 5 and 12, and then our hypotenuse, which is across from that right angle, okay, that will be 13. So both of these bases will have the same dimensions, okay? And then it tells me that the height is 2, and I need to find the surface area. So definitely not to scale, but our height here would be 2. So to find the surface area, I need to find the area of each of the faces of each side. So first I'm going to start with my triangle. So the area of my base of my triangle is going to be 1/2 times the base, which is 5. And then the height of the triangle would be 12. So simplify this, 1/2 times 60 would be 30. So each of my triangular faces have an area of 30. Okay, so I'm just going to write down here. We're going to add together 30 plus 30. And then I have 3 more faces I need to find. Okay, so this bottom one is going to be 5 times 2, which is 10. This one closest to us will be 12 times 2, which is 24. And then the one on this other side here is going to be 13 times 2, which is 26. Okay, so you just want to make sure you get every face here. And there should be 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it looks good. And then when I add those together, I get 120. Okay, a candy shop charges 50 cents a piece, knowing it costs 22 cents to make. The shop has other costs to the business that total $4,200 a month. Select the equation that would represent how many pieces of candy the shop would make if the candy shop were to break even. Okay, so it costs them 22 cents to make each one, and they are charging 50 cents. So the first thing we want to do is find out what is the profit that they're making. Okay, so 50 cents is what they're charging, and it costs them 22 cents to make. So for each candy, they make 28 cents. So I'm going to take that 28 cents and multiply it by the number of pieces of candy, which is represented by C. Okay, and then add, I apologize, and then subtract their cost, because this is my profit. And then profit minus the cost, right? We need to get rid of how much it costs us to run the business, which is 4,200. That's going to equal 0. It's saying they're breaking even. So our profit and our cost have to cancel each other out. So it looks like our best option here would be that 0.28 times C minus 4,200 will equal 0. Okay. A seamstress has 3/5 of a box of buttons left in her kit. After doing some mending, she used the rest of the box along with 1/4 of another. If both boxes contain 200 buttons, when they were originally bought, how many buttons did she use for her recent mending? Okay, so she had a box that was 3/5 full, okay, and it had 200 total. So if I take 3/5 and multiply it by 200, I'll know how many buttons she used in this first box. So this would be 3 times 200 is 600 divided by 5, okay, and that's 120. If we plug that right in our calculator, she used 120 buttons from that first box, and then she used 1/4 of another box. So I'm going to do 1/4 of 200, which is just 200 divided by 4 gives me 50. So when I add the 120 plus the 50, I get 170. as my solution. She used 170 buttons. Okay, a pharmacist writes a prescription for his patient for 200 milligrams, but the pharmacy technician only has the medicine available in grams. How many grams will the pharmacy technician need to fill the order? So notice that there are quite a few of these questions about these conversions. So we need to go this time from milligrams to grams. So I'm going to go back to my King Henry died while drinking chocolate milk mnemonic. Oops. Let me try that again. Chocolate milk. Okay, and go from 200 milligrams. And I have to go to grams. 1, 2, 3. So our decimal would be right here. And if I swoop it 1, 2, 3 times, I will get 0.2 grams as my answer. So just be careful when you make this choice here that you choose 0.2. Make sure you have the correct number of zeros. Okay, solve for the value of y when x equals 3. So I'm going to just plug in x equals 3 here. So y equals, instead of x, I'm going to write 3. So y equals 3 squared plus 4 minus 2. And then we just need to remember, we need to do order of operations. So I'm going to worry about what's in my parentheses first. And here I actually have to do this 3 squared to do that exponent before I do anything else. So 3 times 3 is 9. And now I can do 9 plus 4 is 13. And when I subtract 2, I get 11. So when you plug x into this equation, you get 11. Okay, we are chugging right along. We only have a few more questions together. Let's check out a division problem. So 3/4 divided by 1/2. So when I do division of fractions, I like to think of KCF, close to KFC, but not quite. So KCF. What KCF means is keep, change, flip. So this helps me remember that I'm going to keep my first number the same. I'm going to change division to multiplication, and then I'm going to flip 1/2 to 2/1. So I flip the denominator and the numerator. And now, remember, multiplying fractions is nice and easy. We just get to go across the top and across the bottom. Okay, 6/4, but my answer looks like it needs to be in a simplified mixed number. So 4 goes into 6 one time with 2 left over. And 2/4 is the same thing as 1/2. So when I simplify this, I get 1 and 1/2 as my answer. Okay. The line chart shows the number of cars sold each month. Which statement is true? Okay, so cars sold each month. We have the number sold here and then the months on the bottom. So let's see what our options are. June had the most cars sold. So is that true? June was right here, but it looks like actually there's one higher than that. So that's not correct. There were 2 months where 30 cars were sold. So let's go up. And if I go across the 30, I find one. Nope, only one. So that one isn't correct either. All right. The months with the smallest decrease all sold 5 fewer cars. So let's see when we have a decrease. Okay, so we have a decrease here from 20 to 15. So that is a 5 decrease. We have a decrease here, which is from 35 to 25, but that's 10. And that's definitely not the smallest decrease. We're only looking for the ones that are the smallest. I see a decrease here, 45 to 40. That is also 5. That looks like way more than 5. That looks like more than 5. And then this one is also 5. So it looks like all the ones with that smallest decrease do indeed have 5. And then the last one, just to double check, the difference between the highest and lowest month is 30 cars. So the highest month is 50. The lowest month is 15. 50 minus 15 is actually 35. So that does not work out. Looks like we are going with this one. That is our best answer. Okay, a little bit different of a question here. We need to order all the numbers from least to greatest by dragging the numbers into the boxes in the correct order. So least to greatest, important that we notice that in the question. I see that 2 of these are negative. So those are below 0. I know those are smaller than my positive ones. So I just need to decide which one is smaller, -4/5 or -1/8. So I like to envision a number line. Okay, so 0, 1, -1 would be down here. So -4/5 is going to be pretty close to -1, somewhere like that. Whereas -1/8 would be closer to 0. Oops, that should be a 5, sorry. And this would be -1/8. So -4/5 is actually my smallest number. Okay, so -4/5 is the smallest, and then -1/8 is next. Go through and erase these arrows now. They have all moved. And now we have to go and put the rest of these in order. So if I need to put the rest of these in order, I might want to have a common denominator. That might be helpful. I might be able to visualize some of it, but I'm just going to simplify these first two. 4/12, if I divide both of those by 4, I get 1/3. And then 2/8, I get 1/4. And then 15/16 I know is super close to 1. So I think that might be the biggest one I'm working with. So which one is smaller, 1/3 or 1/4? So a quick trick is just to take your, you could even done this with 4/12. You didn't necessarily have to simplify. So I'll just do that. If I take 4 and I divide it by 12, or 1 divided by 3, I'm going to get 0.3 repeating. But if I take 2 divided by 8, I could also have done that with 1 divided by 4. I will get 0.25. So I'm looking for the next smallest number, and 0.25 is a bit smaller. So I can move that, which was 2/8, and then 4/12, and then 15/16 is my largest number. So that will be the last one. So there we go. We've got them in order from least to greatest. Okay, a teacher buys 4 bottles of water for class. Each bottle of water contains 3 liters. Each cup holds 2/5 of a liter. So how many cups can be filled? So she has 4 bottles of water and each one contains 3 liters. So if I take 4 times 3, she has 12 total liters in class. And I need to take that and divide by the 2/5 that go into each cup, right? We're going to divide by how much she's putting in each cup to see how many cups she can actually fill. So 12 divided by 2/5, we're working with the fraction here, so maybe we can use KCF again, keep, change, flip. So I'm going to keep this as 12, change division to multiplication, and flip this to 5/2. Okay, so I'll just put 12/1 to make sure that we multiply correctly. 12 times 5 is 60, 1 times 2 is 2. And if I just do 60 divided by 2, it looks like she can fill 30 cups. Okay. A service group collects trash from area roadways for 4 straight weeks. The amount of trash they pick up is 19 1/2, 15 1/3, 20 7/10, and 16 3/5. Estimate the total number of pounds collected. So when we have to estimate, this is a question about rounding and seeing what we're going to be close to. So I'm going to round each of these numbers first. So 19 1/2, if we were to round that to the nearest whole number, that would be closer to 20. Okay, 1/2 would round up to 20. 15 1/3 would round down to 15. 20 7/10 would round up to 21. And then 16 3/5 would round up to 17. So now I can just add these together. And when I do that, I get 73. So when I rounded these numbers and then add them together, I get 73 as the total number of pounds collected, my estimated total number of pounds. Okay, area of a penny is approximately 11 square millimeters. Find the circumference of a penny to the nearest tenth. So the area of the penny is 11, and we need to find the circumference. So I talked to you before a little bit about my formula for circumference. So I said circumference equals pi d. cherry pie delicious. Well, apple pies are too. Okay, so cherry pie delicious, that's my circumference formula. Apple pies are too. Area is equal to pi times the radius squared. Okay, so if I know that my area, okay, which is pi times r squared is equal to 11, I can go through and find my radius, and that will help me find the circumference. So we're using 3.14 for pi. So I'm going to do 11 divided by 3.14. And that gives me approximately 3.5. I'm just going to round a little bit. Oops, sorry. R squared equals 3.5. And then I can take the square root, which is a function you can use on your calculator, and find, well, what's the square root of 3.5? That's approximately 1.87. So my radius is around 1.87. Okay, so if we're thinking about a circle, the radius is from the center to the outside. Okay, and circumference equals pi times diameter. Well, if I know the radius, the diameter is just double that. So 1.87 plus 1.87, or just do 1.87 times 2, and that will be approximately 3.74. So my diameter is 3.74. And if I multiply that by pi, okay, let me just move down here a little bit. 3.14 is what we're using for pi, and multiply that by 3.74. And you will find your circumference is 11.7436. Okay, and our closest answer, okay, sometimes you don't get the exact answer, but the closest one that makes sense would be 11.9. So it looks like 11.9 would be our circumference. Okay, so we are on to our last question here. Okay, we need to convert liters to quarts. So I have 8 liters, and I want to know how many quarts is that. Okay, so this is another conversion you need to know. Okay, so 1 liter is equal to 1.057 quarts. Okay, so if I have 8 liters, I'm going to take this and multiply it by 8. Okay, if I multiply 1.057 times 8, I get 8.456. Okay, and again, the closest option to that is 8.48 quarts. All right, so that is a wrap. We have finished up our practice exam. Again, please go ahead and check out the links to get some more support for your TEAS exam. Good luck for those of you who are taking it soon, and please feel free to comment and let us know what you loved about this video and what videos you would like to see in the future. Okay, so again, best of luck, and I am signing off.